Hey everyone, welcome to the final part of our GenAI crash course. By now, you must have already learned OpenAI, LangChain, vector database, and RAG. But none of that matters if you don't know how to ask AI in the right way. In this video, we are going to do a deep dive into prompt engineering, how to craft effective prompts, structure your inputs properly, and get accurate responses from the LLMs. So, mastering this skill will help you unlock AI's full potential for all of your projects. So, without any delay, let's get started. Okay, to understand prompt engineering in detail, we are going to make use of these seven different methods that you can use to enhance your enhance your prompts. To enhance your prompts, first is clarity, context, and constraint. I'm going to go through this Notion page to explain each and every one of those methods. The first one is clarity. So, whenever you're asking for any prompt or whenever you're writing any prompt, make sure that you write it down in markdown format because all of the LLM outputs, if you've observed, they usually come out in markdown because the training data has been uh, curated so that it is fed into the LLM by converting it into markdown. So that is one of the most essential steps when you're writing a prompt. It has to be in markdown format. If you write it down in plain text as paragraphs, then it might not do the job all the time. So it's always better to write everything in markdown. So in markdown, it's very simple. You just have to learn a couple of commands. It hardly takes 5 or 10 minutes to understand it. If you just go to ChatGPT and ask it to explain what is markdown formatting, that itself will explain you. It's very simple to understand. So here I've given task as a heading with two hashtags: guidelines, instructions, and output format. I'm clearly defining each and every aspect of how I want the LLM to behave. So in the task, I'll say summarize the impact of artificial intelligence on the job market. That is my user input. So I'll put it under task. Next, the guidelines, instructions, and output format, they're going to remain irrespective of what the user is giving us the input. These things will remain the same. So I'm giving the guidelines here where I'll say all the different things that it has to follow, and notice the hyphen here, so which means it will act as a bullet point. So I'm giving three bullet points. First one is provide a balanced perspective with both positive and negative impacts. So whatever topic that we are giving under the task, it will have to write a balanced summary, keeping the positive and negative impacts, and it has to keep it under 150 words. Again, when you write it in the prompt, it will try to keep it small, but when you write it as max tokens as 150, it will cut short in between itself. So it's better to write it down in the prompt itself how lengthy you want the output to be, and use simple language suitable for general audience. Or if you're writing it for a professional email, then you can ask it to maintain a very formal tone. And in the instructions, you can mix it up with the guidelines as well, but in the instructions I want to um, talk about specific things on how each and every single output should be. So I'll say start with a brief introduction, highlight key areas, and mention any emerging trends. Avoid technical jargon. So these are all different instructions that it is going to follow in every single output that is going to give. Guidelines are basic, general guidelines that it will follow across all of the outputs. And the output format, of course, I'll say a simple paragraph under 150 words. Or if you want something in bullet points, you'll have to write it down here. Give me only bullet points. So in that way, we can write down a very detailed prompt instead of writing just one line or one paragraph. This is the very first step. Now, second one, zero shot, zero shot prompting. So if you see the previous one and the example that is present on the screen here, there are no examples anywhere. But it's always better to give additional examples. So that is where few short prompting comes into the picture. Here you can see under the instructions I'm passing example 1 and example 2. This is the input and this is the output. The task is very simple here. Convert active voice sentences into passive voice. And these are the guidelines: grammatical correctness, follow the structure of given examples, very basic. But in the examples, if you see the input, I'm giving active in brackets in the input, and I'm expecting passive in brackets in the output. Nothing else. I don't want any prefix like sure, here is the passive version of the given context. I don't want all that explanation nonsense. I want just the output. So you can give the format here, and in the output format also you can mention a single sentence in passive voice. uh, Now convert this one. This is where your actual input is going to go. Additionally, apart from prompt engineering, you can also implement few shot prompting in your code as well. So let's take a look at this piece of code. So here again, I'm using OpenAI to connect to my client, and here in the messages part, I've created this lengthy list where I'm saying you are a financial expert specialized in blockchain applications. Always respond in JSON format. This is crucial. Always respond in JSON format. I want the output to be totally in JSON all the time. So, if my context is explain blockchain in context of finance, then take a look at the output. It is in JSON or dictionary, anything. There is no explanation, there is no any unnecessary things in the output. It is completely just in JSON. Now, I wrote this thing manually. The same thing goes for second example as well. Now when I give the third question, my LLM output is going to be very similar to the examples that I've passed in the previous examples. So the output that I'll get for this question will also be in JSON format. If you have watched my NLP to SQL AI agent video, I've done the exact same thing over there. So in the messages, for I've given 10 examples, I believe. So for each question, I've given the SQL query as the assistant response. Now, whenever the user is asking a new question, the bot will give me the response as a SQL query again in the exact same format as I've mentioned in the examples. So this is few shot prompting. It's very highly useful tool, highly useful method, technique. Next comes chain of thought. So, as the name suggests, this is a chain of thought, which means there is a chain linking between multiple things. So, here we take certain task and then we break it down into multiple pieces, and each piece will be followed by its next piece. So, let's take a look at the prompt here. The task is solve this math problem step by step. Guidelines show each step clearly, explain the logic behind each calculation. Now, here you can see in the output format, I'm giving it step by step. First step, what does it have to do? Second step, third step, fourth step. So let's say if I have a question, I can use an LLM to construct all these steps and then place them here. So what happens is you are giving specific instructions to your LLM on how to think and how to approach this particular question, this particular task. So what happens is when it is giving out the output, first it will make sure that it is addressing step 1, then it will make sure that it is addressing step 2, step 3, step 4, so on. So in that way, the output that is being generated from the LLM model will make sure that it is following these steps. So this is one popular technique when you want your LLM to behave in a certain way. If you are dealing with tasks which require a lot of chain thinking. Let's say, okay, so the next one is role-based prompting. Now, let's say if you want your AI assistant to work as a project manager, or if you wanted to write, or if you want it to work as a script writer, story writer, song writer, lyric writer, there are so many different tasks. So depending upon the task, you can assign a role to your LLM model. So this is usually given in the system level instructions. So here you can see explain the concept of blockchain as a financial expert. Oftentimes you'll see guidelines like act as an expert in story writing, or you are an expert, or you are a professional graphic designer. These kind of lines are very important because you're assigning a role to your model. The next technique is negative prompting. So this is where you'll explicitly mention the things that you don't want in your output. So summarize the effect of climate change, but do not include opinions or predictions. avoid alarmist or exaggerated language. So these are negative prompting. I can also expand this list, or I can give more emphasis on this one. I can also tell my add this as a separate block, and then in the guidelines I can say make sure that all of the negative prompting have been followed. So this is a very powerful technique to use when your LLM outputs are coming in a way which you're not expecting. Next, the final one, which is structured responses. As I've shown you previously, if you want your output to be in a certain structure, as a JSON file, let's say, then here I'll say in the guidelines, ensure the JSON structure follows a given format, output format. So I'm giving the format of my output as well. So name, age, profession, and company, these are four different keys that should essentially make it into the output. So whatever input I give, it should give out an output with a JSON format with these four keys. Again, if you want to improve this, then make sure that you are adding a couple of examples in the code as well. So these are some of the different prompt engineering techniques. If this series has helped you, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know what topics you'd like to see next. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more AI content. Thank you for being a part of this journey. As always, happy coding. Thank you.